To be very blunt, let us speak plainly. A permanent member of the United Nations Security Council invaded its neighbor, attempted to erase a sovereign state from the map.
What he didn't do, which I wish he would have gone further, is call out the countries that are helping Russia, call out the fact that China's helping, call out the fact that Iran's sending drones, call out North Korea for doing rockets. He could have made that a bigger isolation if he would have called those countries out.
That was former UN Ambassador, South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley there slamming the president for his speech at the UN earlier today.
But from the tension on the world stage to liberal media pettiness on the sound stage, one of the women of The View taking issue with Nikki Haley over her name.
I think that Nikki Haley was an incredibly effective governor of South Carolina. Nikki Haley's gone by Nikki since she was a child. It's documented in high school. I wouldn't be shocked that as somebody, an Indian woman growing up in South Carolina at that time, she actually did to avoid prejudice. So I just want to be careful about critiquing her for going by the name she's always gone by.
There are some of us that can be chameleons and decide not to embrace our ethnicity so that we can pass.
Sonny, I don't think that's fair.
You go by a different name.
Yeah, I didn't want to be the one to say it.
Most Americans can't pronounce Asuncion because of the undereducation.
I think hard to say too. I don't blame her. But sometimes
Nikki Haley firing back and tweeting, "Thanks for your concern, Sonny. It's racist of you to judge my name. Nikki is an Indian name and is on my birth certificate, and I'm proud of that. What's sad is the left's hypocrisy toward conservative minorities. By the way, last I checked, Sonny isn't your birth name."
Speaking of names, critics pointing out if Sonny has such an issue, she could speak to her liberal co-hosts. Let's get reaction now from a fellow South Carolinian Republican Senator Tim Scott. Extremely offensive, that exchange on that show.
Sandra, absolutely. I can't imagine that in America today that Sonny's having a conversation about Nikki Haley's name. I mean, let's have a conversation about how good of a governor she was. Let's have a conversation about how all of South Carolinians, especially minorities in our state, saw their opportunities go up, not down, under her leadership. The fact of the matter is that when you see strong, powerful, positive minorities standing up on the conservative side, the left always wants to hit and demoralize, diminish our impact. I am thanking God that I was born and raised in South Carolina, and I thank God that Nikki Haley was our governor. I can't think of a worse situation to see on TV than someone who doesn't go by her own name, talking about Nikki Haley, whose name is Nikki Haley on her birth certificate. Nikki.
Yeah, wow. She spent the hour with our Harris Faulkner. They had a lot, obviously, to get to because the president was speaking at the United Nations. Ultimately, they did get around to this topic. Here's what Nikki Haley said just a short time ago.
The idea that they can do this, you're not going to see her fired from that show. We're not even going to see an apology from that show because they let liberals say that about conservative Republican minorities all the time. But yet nothing is done. Had this been said about a Democrat, all hell would have broken loose.
So let's just pick up on that theme because you were the victim of, they were different allegations, but they were of a piece of this. And it was unfair, didn't tell your story.
Yes, absolutely. Well, listen, one of the things I've learned from liberal media is they will question your own life story. I mean, the fact that Washington Post did a fact check to see if my grandfather in 1927 finished school in the 3rd grade or the 4th grade. They spent 3 months doing a research to figure out when my grandfather stopped going to school. The fact that there are hosts that say, call me Uncle Tim, the bigotry from the left is condoned by today's media and or celebrated in today's media. I feel sorry for those folks who are afraid of conservatives who are minorities. It is the power of choice, the power of being an individual that we should all celebrate, the power of choosing your own destiny. That's the power of choice that sets people free.
All right, I want to move on to the momentum that seems to be on the side of Democrats as we work our way 7 weeks out from the midterm elections. You put up on the screen here the balance of power and now 30 toss-ups in the race in the House, which if Democrats run run the table, they could keep the majority there, and Republicans could gain a major majority if they were to run the table. So we're watching that, and then you can put up the Senate power rankings with the forecast majority 51-4 toss-up. Senator, what is going on here, and why did it look like a red wave was coming months ago, and that potential margin of victory for your party seems to be shrinking?
Well, Senator, I'm still very bullish on our odds of winning back the majority in the House and the Senate this November. There's no doubt about it that our candidates on the field are executing in really positive fashion. It's one of the reasons why I have chosen to not only campaign at home in South Carolina, but to go to Wisconsin and to Ohio and to hopefully Philadelphia and also in Nevada really soon as well. So I'm traveling the country while maintaining my presence at home because we are going to win back majorities. And frankly, all the polls that suggest otherwise, they've been wrong so often, I don't even pay attention to them.
Yeah, I mean, Nate Cohn did an article in the New York Times about how wrong some of the polls are in some of these battleground states and have been since 2016. But here's the reality. The Democrats have really been able to leverage the messaging on the Dobbs decision from at the beginning of the summer and the abortion issue. And that's being credited with cutting into what it looked like was an insurmountable Republican lead. At the same time, Republicans should be running away on the economy, inflation, and jobs. I mean, when you take a look at the president the other night on 60 Minutes, downplaying 8.3% and saying, well, it was just an inch from the previous month. But you're not.
Well, John, I disagree with you. Let me tell you this. One of the things that the American people are focused on is the fact that for 6 consecutive months, inflation has been over 8%. For 17 consecutive months, inflation has outpaced wage growth. So when you talk to the average voter across the country, as I am in person, the one thing they talk about is inflation. The second they talk about is the economy. And the third thing they talk about is gas. And when you get to the fourth, it's crime. The truth is that we are going to win back majorities because we're talking about what the American people want to hear. I know that there is a progressive movement that wants to change the subject because they're so terrible on the economy. I'd want to change the subject if I was on their side too. But the truth is, you can't change the subject when you pull up to the gas pump. You can't change the subject when you go to the grocery store. This is coming. There's a red wave coming, and I thank God we're riding it.
I think also people are really hungry for some positive messaging on the economy because people are living through this, and it's economic pain on the average American family that's shelling out more and more money every month, nearly $500 now, more than last year, just to pay for inflation, working more, 70 hours a week. Some families an all-time high, working 2 full-time jobs a week now, living paycheck to paycheck, 60% of the population.
Yes.
I want to pop the Dow up because we just got this major decision by the Federal Reserve that has been tasked to tame that 40-year high inflation. Markets are selling off here. They're down 225 points since the Fed just announced another interest rate hike, Senator. So are they going to be able to get this under control? Should they have been more aggressive?
Well, Sandra, I think we are in a very precarious position as it relates to our economy. The truth is that as the Fed continues to use their biggest tool in the toolbox, it's just not enough to slow down this inflationary effect that we're seeing throughout the economy. And I would suspect that next month will be much like this month, much like last month. The truth is 75 basis points is the best they could have done. We're already in a recession. More than half this country has less than $1,000 in their savings account. The truth is, Sandra, as a kid who grew up in a single-parent household, I will tell you when my mom pulled up to the gas pump and gases are 50 or 60% higher, that was a crisis in our lives. We were looking for nickels and quarters and dimes to put gas in the car to get to work. People misunderstand what's happening in America because they spend too much time in Washington and too little time in Summerville, South Carolina, or in Anderson, South Carolina. This is a challenge, and it's not going away between now and the election.
I want to move on to another issue, if we could, Senator, that seems to be building in terms of an election year issue. It was a big one last year in the Virginia governor's race, and that is parental rights when it comes to what your children are being taught in schools, or basically whether or not their life at school is being forcefully separated from yours. You have introduced the PROTECT Act And I'm always amazed by these acronyms, which stands for Parental Rights Over the Education. Yeah, the Parental Rights Over the Education and Care of Their Kids Act that would prohibit schools from concealing information about students' gender from their parents. People at home might say, well, what are you talking about here? It's exactly what the Fairfax County public school system wants to do here in Virginia.
Well, exactly. John, I'm just saying, let's follow the laws. The fact of the matter is that your child is your most precious possession. It's your greatest asset. It's your wonderful hope for your future. And to literally separate the child from the parent at 9, 10, 11, and 12 years old is just, I can't imagine. It's unimaginable. What's happening in schools, big labor unions and bureaucrats are stopping parents from knowing what's happening to their kids. Parents should be talking to their teachers, not having to file a Freedom of Information Act to see if their kid's learning about CRT or some gender issue in the 4th grade. That's unconscionable, literally unconscionable. We should stop seeing schools indoctrinate kids and get back to educating that child.
This is just one aspect of getting our education system back on track. It's really been a mess, and a lot of parents have gotten a first-hand look at that because of the pandemic, looking over their kid's shoulder during virtual learning, hearing what teachers were teaching in the classroom. But we know we also have a problem with teacher shortages in this country. It's a bit of a mess when it comes to our public education system. How do we get back, Senator?
Well, Senator, one of the things that I've been saying for the last 9 years is that we have to introduce more options for parents. The more choices a parent has, the better chance the kid has for succeeding. Out of all that money given away last year to schools, about 93% of the dollars are still unspent. I have legislation that would take a portion of those dollars, give it to the parents so they can choose a school that's actually having in-room curriculum, in-room classes. Or you could actually find a mentor or find a tutor to help your kid with math or science or reading, the basics. So one of the ways that we get ourselves back in line with the future of America by educating kids today is simply by giving the parents the resources they need and the options they need to make simple choices. And by the way, Sandra, this country spends nearly $750 billion overall, K through 12. It's not a money issue, it's who has the power. And the power is in the hands of labor unions, adults, not children.
That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Who's got the power? Well, we'll see how this plays out as we wind down to November the 8th. Senator, it's always great to catch up with you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Senator. Great to have you.
Thank you, John. Take care. Yes, ma'am.
All right.